The Wilderness Act of 1964 by Natasha Agarwal. Try to remember the last time you went on a hike or camping, or the time you just went for a walk through the trees. Wasn't it relaxing to see all the nature around you? The leaves flowing in the air, the smell of the pine cones from the tree next to you. For those of you from the Bay Area, I'm sure you've heard of the famous Mission Peak, pictured on the top left here. It is an extremely popular spot for many to hike to. So popular, it has its own filter on Snapchat. None of these would exist today if it wasn't for the Wilderness Act of 1964. Without the passage of this act, it would not be possible to take a hike for leisure or to even go camping with your friends. What is the Wilderness Act of 1964? It was an act created by Howard Zahniser. He created this act to protect the most pristine and valuable land we have on our planet. He drafted the bill for the very first time in 1956. It took a total of 8 years, 18 hearings, and 66 revisions, all he did by himself, for it to be finally signed by the president at the time, Lyndon B. Johnson. Unfortunately, Zahniser had passed away 4 months prior to his bill being signed. He was never able to see a big part of his life's work swinged into action. The following is a recording of a speech by President Lyndon B. Johnson at the time of the signing.
For example, the Wilderness Bill has been before the Congress since 1957, but it passed this year 73-12 in the Senate, and 373-1 in the House. So it seems to me that this reflects a new and a strong national consensus to look ahead, and more than that, to plan ahead, and better still, to move ahead.
The Wilderness Act of 1964 forced the creation of the National Wilderness Preservation System. This is the system used to protect approximately 110 million acres of land stretching from the east coast to the west coast of the United States. This infographic shown here on the slide shows exactly what percentage of each section in the United States is considered to be wilderness, while the rest is not looked into at all. What has this act done in our country? With the creation of the National Wilderness Preservation System, this act has allowed Americans, as well as Congress, to specifically designate quote-unquote wilderness areas. These wilderness areas are specific areas which receive the highest form of protection they can get through our people. The highest form of protection means that absolutely nothing can be done in these areas. There can be no roads made, no vehicles driven through it, or any permanent structures built. There also can be absolutely no logging or mining in these areas. These areas are meant to be enjoyed by our population, enjoyed through hikes, backpacking, fishing, camping, and more. Without these designated areas for us, some of us may have never been able to go on the many of our past memorable trips in any of these areas. The first 4 wilderness areas created were considered to be very significant for this act. They were in 4 different states: Minnesota, Wyoming, Montana, and California. One of the very first designated wilderness areas was the Boundary Waters Canoe Area in Minnesota. This area contains over 1,900,000 acres of land. In all of that land, there is 1,200 miles of canoe routes, 12 hiking trails, and over 2,000 camping sites for people. There is a lot this area has to offer. The Bridger Wilderness has a total of over 426,000 acres of land. It is a piece of the Rocky Mountains, which extends for more than 80 miles. It holds 7 of the 10 main frozen glaciers. It is used for a hiking spot and sightseeing for various birds and creatures. The Bob Marshall Wilderness in Montana contains more than 1.1 million acres of land. It is considered to be the third largest wilderness in the lower 48 states. This wilderness was named after an early forester of the time, a preservation pioneer, and the Wilderness Society co-founder, Bob Marshall. This is one of the most preserved mountain ecosystems in the world, one which is a challenge for many to imagine. It has more than what any other ecosystem can offer. The Ansel Adams Wilderness is in California and totals up to a little over 231,500 acres in area. It is full of lakes, gorges, and peaks. It was originally called the Minarets Wilderness and was later renamed to honor Ansel Adams in 1984. Its altitude ranges from 7,000 feet to almost 14,000 feet. It is used as a hiking and sightseeing site. Let's flash forward to more recent times. Obama's 2009 passage of the Omnibus Public Land Management Act added over 2 million acres of land to the National Wilderness Preservation System. If we go back just 2 years, however, in 2014, under the Congress of the time, there had been some change in thought, or bias, towards one side, the non-conserving side. As the 50th anniversary celebration was coming around, there was an uncertainty whether some lands would find themselves under the protection of the government or not. Even when there was an abundance of Americans who made themselves clear they wanted this land to be protected, there was still a huge uncertainty present. Thankfully, however, with our current Congress in 2016, there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel. The current Congress has proposed for over millions of acres of land to be protected as a wilderness area. They are said to be not as biased as the Congress 2 years ago. There are currently 6 states which have no wilderness areas in them: Connecticut, Delaware, Iowa, Kansas, Maryland, and Rhode Island. As of right now, there is no plan either for any of these specific states to have any areas as a designated wilderness area. We hope that in the future there comes to be some area to have as a wilderness area to ensure that all of our land in our country is completely protected. There are many bills regarding the Wilderness Act which are yet to be processed by the Congress, and there are many lands which are still up for grabs to be put under the protection of the government. These areas include wilderness in Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, Michigan, Tennessee, and Maine. Why does all of this matter to us? With the Wilderness Act of 1964, Americans in Congress have been given the opportunity to preserve over 750 wilderness areas all across our country. By preserving these lands, wildlife and animals have been given another chance to survive. We are able to have clean water and air on our planet. We are able to boost our economy through tourism. And lastly, create an area where one can take a step back and escape from the modern world. None of us would be where we are today without the Wilderness Act of 1964. Next time you go on a walk or a hike, imagine it without the trees or the fresh air. It won't be pretty. Thank you.